For years, I lived in the neighborhood of Dawn's Light, a place where impeccable appearance and unwavering order reigned without question. I, Alejandro Rivera, had always been passionate about sustainability and innovation. From a young age, I dreamed of changing the way we consumed energy, and over time, I turned that dream into reality by founding Sol Energia, an emerging company dedicated to providing clean energy solutions. I never imagined that my revolutionary vision would clash head-on with the tyranny of our Homeowners Association, HOA. One morning, as I opened my front door, I was confronted by a neon yellow envelope conspicuously attached to my mailbox. My heart pounding, I tore it open and, upon reading the first lines, knew something was terribly wrong. For violation of the aesthetic standards of Dawn's Light, you are hereby fined $1,200 for the installation of unauthorized devices on your home's facade. My solar panels, proudly mounted on my roof, shimmered under the sun as a symbol of my commitment to the environment. To the HOA board, however, they were an affront to the neighborhood's pre-established aesthetic. How could they not see that these panels were the gateway to the future? As indignation surged within me, a burning thought took shape. They had no idea who was really behind that solar glow. The HOA had, for years, dictated arbitrary rules and imposed fines for any detail that deviated from their rigid manual of good taste. I had tried, on several occasions, to explain the environmental and economic benefits of solar energy, only to be met with disdainful glances and an absolute refusal to consider any change. That day's fine was just another example of the excessive power they wielded over our lives. While preparing my breakfast with a steaming cup of coffee, I recalled past meetings where the unyielding president, Doña Margarita Salinas, paraded in her impeccable suit with an air of superiority, enforcing rules without allowing any discussion. Every word she uttered echoed in my mind. The order and beauty of the neighborhood are sacred, Mr. Rivera. We cannot allow modern experiments to jeopardize that image. How infuriating was that outdated argument. I decided it was time to act, not with empty confrontations, but by presenting irrefutable evidence that not only were my solar panels beneficial, but that, ironically, I was the true driving force behind the neighborhood's energy revolution. That afternoon, I went to my study, a space filled with blueprints, charts, and prototypes of renewable energy systems. I powered up my computer and opened a hidden folder labeled Projects Sol Energia. Inside lay a detailed record of every contract, investment, and partnership I had forged to make Sol Energia the company that now powered not only my home, but the entire community of Dawn's Light. I meticulously reviewed every document, aware that I held the power to reverse the situation in my hands. As I delved into the records, the phone rang. It was my lawyer, Mr. Ernesto Martinez, a shrewd man experienced in legal battles against powerful entities. "Alejandro," he said, "I just received an anonymous email from someone on the board. Apparently, the HOA is preparing to sue you for altering the neighborhood's aesthetic landscape. We need to prepare for an unprecedented legal confrontation." I replied calmly, "Ernesto, this isn't just about aesthetics. It's about denying us the freedom to progress. And you know very well, they don't know who I really am." "Exactly," he agreed. "It's time for them to see the truth. You are the majority owner of Sol Energia and, in many ways, the economic engine of this neighborhood. Prepare your evidence. This is going to be revolutionary." As night fell and the neighborhood settled into its usual routine, I took a quiet walk along the rooftop of my house. From that vantage point, I observed the stark contrast between the modernity of my solar panels and the uniformly painted facades of the neighboring houses. Each ray of sunlight captured by my panels symbolized the future, a force that would transform not only my life, but the lives of all who, like me, yearned to break free from the chains of outdated thinking. I recalled the numerous complaints, from neighbors who had grumbled about the panels, not realizing that behind them lay innovation and progress. I thought of all the emails, the meetings where I was barely allowed to speak without being interrupted by the board's obstinacy, and how, silently, I had been forging alliances and securing contracts that made me, unbeknownst to them, the true economic powerhouse of Dawn's Light. Upon returning home, I found another envelope. Not the dreaded fine, but an invitation to attend the annual HOA meeting scheduled for the following week, where measures to maintain the neighborhood's aesthetic would be discussed. I knew that everyone would be there, even those who had long feigned indifference to the board's oppressive dictates. The day of the meeting arrived amid an atmosphere charged with tension. The community center's elegant yet austere hall was filled with neighbors seated in orderly rows, their expressions a mix of curiosity and anxiety. Doña Margarita Salinas stood at the podium, her unmistakable superior smile in place. In a commanding voice, she announced, "Welcome to the annual meeting of Dawn's Light. Today, we will discuss new measures to ensure that the image of our neighborhood remains impeccable. We cannot allow unauthorized installations, such as solar panels, which disrupt the uniformity of our facades." A murmur of discontent rippled through the room. Some neighbors nodded in agreement, while others exchanged uncertain glances. It was then that I raised my hand and, with the calm of a man who had waited for the perfect moment, requested to speak. Doña Margarita, visibly irritated, granted me the floor, and I stepped up to the podium with determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice resonating through the hall, "let me say something. The solar panels that have been the subject of fines and debates are not a symbol of disorder. They are a symbol of progress. And it is time you all know the truth. I am not just a resident who believes in renewable energy. I am the founder and majority owner of Sol Energia, the company that powers this neighborhood and many other communities in the region." A heavy silence fell upon the room as faces turned from skepticism to astonishment and disbelief. Doña Margarita's face paled, and she struggled to maintain her composure, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What does this mean, Mr. Rivera?" she stammered. "You, who have defied our rules, now claim to be the driving force behind our community's energy?" "Exactly," I replied, opening a folder brimming with documents, contracts, and invoices that irrefutably proved my claim. "For years, I have invested not only in my home, but in the energy infrastructure of Dawn's Light. Every solar panel, every installation, has been a step toward a cleaner, more efficient future. While you clung to an outdated aesthetic, I bet on innovation and sustainability. Today, I prove that my panels are not only legal, but they represent the progress that all of us need." The room erupted in a mixture of murmurs and exclamations. Some neighbors, tears welling in their eyes, nodded in support, recalling the numerous visits by technicians and the tangible improvements in their electricity bills. Others, still in disbelief, exchanged looks as if questioning everything they had known until that moment. Doña Margarita attempted to counter my arguments with bureaucratic jargon, citing regulations and precedents, but the overwhelming evidence rendered her rebuttals futile. At that moment, my lawyer, Mr. Martinez, rose discreetly from one of the rows and intervened in a firm, authoritative tone. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we are witnessing is an act of innovation and progress. The evidence presented by Mr. Rivera is indisputable. Furthermore, the HOA regulations cannot be used to suppress technological development and the advance toward a sustainable future. I urge you all to reflect on what truly benefits our community." The atmosphere grew electric, and the tension reached unprecedented levels. Several neighbors began to express their support vocally, recounting stories of extended visits from Sol Energia technicians, of installations that had significantly improved their quality of life, and of reduced costs in their homes. The truth had shattered the web of aesthetic lies woven by the board. At that moment, an elderly woman with silvery hair, Mrs. Lucia Herrera, rose and, her voice trembling but filled with conviction, recounted how the installation of solar panels had allowed her granddaughter, who studied abroad, to save on expenses, easing the family's financial burdens. Her simple yet heartfelt words resonated deeply with everyone present. Doña Margarita, now visibly defeated, tried in vain to regain control, but the tide had turned. The meeting transformed into a spontaneous outcry for change, as the majority of the neighbors demanded an end to the arbitrary restrictions and the adoption of policies that fostered innovation and environmental stewardship. "Enough of these obsolete rules," a young entrepreneur shouted, and others joined in a chorus of approval, declaring, "We want a neighborhood that looks to the future, not one that is trapped in the past." The oppressive atmosphere dissolved into an enthusiastic wave of collective determination. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The sanctions imposed on me were revoked, and a complete review of the HOA's regulations was mandated, ensuring that, from then on, sustainable development and modernization would be the guiding principles of our community. That night, as I left the meeting, I felt that I had ignited a revolution in dawn's light. Walking along the streets, the twinkling lights of solar panels served as beacons of a new dawn. Neighbors stopped to converse, exchanging smiles, and renewed hopes. The aesthetic tyranny had crumbled before the power of truth and progress. Back at home, I sat on my porch and gazed at the garden illuminated by the soft glow of the moon. In that quiet moment, I remembered my father's words. Real power lies in the unity of those who dare to stand up for their dignity. I realized, then, that this day had not only defended my right to innovate, but had also opened the path for every resident of Dawn's Light to break free from the shackles of an outdated mentality. As I later recorded my thoughts in my journal, every moment of that transformative day filled me with gratitude and resolve. The struggle for clean energy and social progress is a continuous battle, yet tonight, victory felt as tangible as the gentle rustling of the trees in the breeze, the story of how the HOA fined me for my solar panels, without knowing that I owned the energy company, would soon spread far and wide. Local media had already caught wind of the uprising, preparing reports about the neighborhood that lit up with renewable energy. Meanwhile, the new HOA board committed itself to work hand-in-hand with innovators, ensuring that progress and sustainability became the pillars of our community. As I reclined in my porch chair, watching the solar panels capture the last rays of the day, a profound sense of peace and satisfaction washed over me. We had triumphed over the tyranny of the past, proving that innovation, clean energy, and progress can coexist with tradition without imposing stifling limitations. This is not just my story. It is the story of everyone who dares to challenge the status quo, who looks to the future with hope, and who transforms every obstacle into an opportunity. And as dawn's light drifted into a renewed slumber that night, I closed my eyes, knowing that the true light shines from the courage within each of us. O3 Mini.